Today, I have the privilege of speaking with an elite military operator, someone who has witnessed the harshest realities of war firsthand. The brutal war that Hamas launched against Israel on October 7th, 2023, has left deep scars on Israeli society. Israelis are strong, resilient, and unyielding in the face of adversity, but war exacts a heavy toll on any people. For over 500 days, Israel has been engaged in an intense and unforgiving battle, one that has come at an unbearable cost. The lives of innocent civilians, the ongoing suffering of hostages, and the deep wounds, both seen and unseen, borne by those who stand on the front lines. I bring to you a man who has stood on those front lines, but who has really operated behind enemy lines under the shrouds of secrecy. Through his experiences, we will gain insight into the struggles, sacrifices, and unbreakable spirit of those who fight to defend the nation of Israel. What does it mean to be a soldier in a war that tests every limit, physical, mental, and emotional? And what does life look like after the battlefield? One of the elite and secretive units in the Israel Defense Forces is Duvdevan, notable for its undercover operations in urban areas, during which its operators often wear civilian clothing to disguise themselves among the local Arab population behind enemy lines. Join me as I speak with the commander of Duvdevan, Barak Chacoty. He is the author of the book Moment to Kill, available on Amazon in English. The Hebrew version became a bestseller in Israel within 3 weeks of publication. So it's a great pleasure that I have to speak with Barak right now. Barak, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Barak, we have a lot to cover. There's so much we can learn from you. Maybe just to start off, could you share with us a defining moment from your time in combat that shaped your perspective on war?
I think that in this Duvdevan unit, which is one of the really special ops units in Israel, you usually, the definition is that you have to surprise your enemy always. In this horrified day, the October 7th, we were surprised. For me, it was a really, really um, unique situation that we weren't in before. And of course, the amount of casualties, whether they're injured or, God forbid, killed soldiers in small unit like Duvdevan, which is a small unit, we were in shock. I mean, it's a big, big trauma for all of us. Of course, we recovered and we gained all the forces and we struggled back and we strike back hard. But still, the first day was very, very hard.
What would you say is the most challenging aspect of serving in an elite unit like Duvdevan, as opposed to being conscripted into the military and putting your life at risk, but not that same intensity that a unit like Duvdevan has?
I think that every combat soldier in the world, especially in Israel, works very hard. But the specific thing in Duvdevan, which of course you have to disguise to your enemy and blend into whether it's a refugee camp or a city as a mosque or any other place in the West Bank, is the intensive work 24/7. The unit is very small. You don't have, without getting into classified information, it's not a big unit like a big battalion or a regime like the paratroopers or the Golani brigade. So the stress on each and every combat soldier in the unit is higher from if you try to compare it to other units. I think also the training course is very long. It's over a year. And because that you have to be trained in a very highly skills for all whatever you can do, whether navigations or combat methods or of course Arabic and blending into the Arab population. Now, don't forget that in other elite units, usually when you go out to an operation, you go a big mass of soldiers together. But when you have to disguise yourself in a hostile environment, so by definition, you go in a very small groups. It can be even a pair. I mean, a couple of combat soldiers, goes into a refugee camp or a mosque or a city or something, that the tense is very, very high in this specific unit.
Now, I know there are things you cannot share with us, but in terms of mentally preparing to go behind enemy lines, staying there for an extended period of time in a disguise, how do you prepare for that on a mental level?
It's a very good question. I can tell you that in my book, when I wrote it about the Duvdevan unit, it's based on our true experience. One of the main things that popped out is the mental thing, because of course, again, every combat soldiers in the world and in Israel has mental stress and has, if you go to a battle, you know that you will not, it can be that you will not get back a healthy 100% or at all. But in Duvdevan, when you go inside their villages, their cities or their streets, and where you're alone, this is the main thing, that you're alone. And because that, I think that the brotherhood of soldiers, specific in Duvdevan, is much, much more tightened, because you know that when you go out with one or two of your friends, they will do everything to cover your back, and the opposite. You're willing to die or to take a bullet to save the soldiers. And listen, we have in our team, we had this situation that people got wounded because they helped their friends. I think the main thing is, even though you're planning as much as you try to, in the end, always in the battlefield, things will be different, because you go to some refugee camp and you're expecting X, and in the end, it's Y. I can tell you also stories. For example, I want to show you how much people think that if you put kafia on your head and you put some mustache and you're an Arab. No, the question is, the answer is no. I'll tell you a funny story. My friend and I went to one of in Jenin. Jenin is one of the biggest and one of the places that Hamas sits there very, very hard. We had the situation that me and my friend were in this refugee camp in Jenin, and my friend was chewing a gum, and suddenly we had what we called fauda. I mean, from all over the place, people started to throw stones and bricks, and suddenly we were shot at, and we ran away from the place, really without harm, but it was a miracle. And when we went to the unit and we started to think to do the reverse engineer what happened, we discovered that my friend chewed chewing gum. But it was the Ramadan. Ramadan is the holy month. In the Ramadan, everybody fast, or at least do not drink or eat or smoke in the public area. Now, my friend forgot, and he just chewed, small chewing gum. But this specifically shows that people, when they saw him, they said, "Listen, something is not okay with this guy." And then they suspect us, and in the end, we failed this specific mission operation. And again, it's before we even open our mouth to speak. We didn't reach the level of started connecting with the environment. For example, I can tell you another story. Me and my couple. I mean, I was number one, he was number two. We were in Nablus. It was a very hot day, and we finished what we had to do, and we were looking for waiting for the car to pick us up. And we got a message that the car being delayed for a technical thing. We have to spare another 10-15 minutes in the area. Now, you can't stand, in the middle of the Arabic speak and just wait. So it was summer. So we bought some ice cream. And my friend, he took the ice cream, he peeled, he peeled and he started eating, but he was holding the paper, the wrap paper in his hand. I asked him in Arabic, in a quiet, "What are you doing?" Saying, "I'm looking for a garbage, for a trash to put I said, listen, you're in the middle of a refugee camp in Nablus. You can't hold it. I mean, you're not in the middle of New York or Tel Aviv that you're looking for a trash. You have to throw it on the floor. And again, without even speaking, our cover was blown up because people look and say, listen, something is wrong with this couple. So you understand that this, when you speak about the stress, I'm not talking about even to learn the language or to learn the difference, the difference dialect between the north area of the territories or the south, because the Arab language of one of Hebron, which is in the south, or one of Jenin, which is in the north, it's a different thing. It's like if I can compare, for example, you take two Americans, one from Harlem and one from California and one from Texas, and let them speak English, you will hear the difference between them, and you can recognize or you can define who came from where, even though three of them are speaking English. I mean, because the language has some music, some dialect. So I'm saying when you ask about the stress, you have to be aware 24/7 to all 360 degrees, whatever happens with you. You have to know not to chewing gum in the Ramadan. You have to know what you can do. What you can do, for example, if you were disguising into a woman in Hebron, which is a Hamas area, she will be dressed much more, modest. She will not go fast. She will wear a skirt, not a pants, for example. She won't get any red color in her clothes. She will wear only black, for example. And if you'll take this woman and a different one from Ramallah, which is more, a liberal place and less religious, so the woman from Ramallah will be different in her appearance. But all this is without motion, without even opening your mouth to start to speak with the population in the area. So I'm saying the stress that sits on a combat soldier in Duvdevan is something very huge, because in the end, A, you're alone. B, without getting into specific details, you're not taking with you machine gun and stuff. Usually you go with a pistol, with a handgun. That's it. And if you have any, God forbid, anything with some terrorist, he's coming with his AK-47 and you're with a handgun. You must be very, very, very high talented with your gun to do whatever you can do in order to kill him or kidnap him or whatever you do to go out from this situation alive. You're alone. You have to know the dialect. You have to know how to react to things that happens during the undercover mission. And in the end, you know that you're in your couple, you're two people alone. So if something happens, till the reinforcement will come, you're in big trouble. So the main thing is not to get into any trouble, to do the things smoothly and in smart situation, to take the decisions in a way that will not compromise you or the mission.
Now, Barak, let me ask you, you're talking about blending into an Arab community, the nuance of the wording that you use in your hand motions and whatnot. When I take a look at you, you don't exactly look like you are of Middle Eastern Arab descent. How does that work? How were you successful in that environment when you don't look the part?
I'll tell you something. First, again, without any going into classified details, you know that you can look at in different way if you put some, whether it's clothes, makeup, beard, you can. I'm not getting into, but you understand if you look at any movie, they take people that 25 years old, they can look 70 and 80. You can play with. We have our tricks. First. Second, I think that even the outside shell is important, but if you come to this mission with a very strong belief in yourself, in your capabilities, because you had a very long training course and you're 100% with the handgun you have, or with the combat Krav Maga, the combat methods that and you know that something will get a little bit shaky, you know how to get out of it. So you must be very, very sure in your abilities and in your number two capabilities to know what to do. I know it looks very odd, but when you get into your character in the territories, you look different 100%. You will not recognize me.
Now, from your experience, what do civilians most often misunderstand about military operations and combat?
I think that the civilians don't understand many times that it's very complicated. You know, people looking for let's do it and that's it. It's very complicated. It takes time. Um, for example, okay, I'll give an example. You see now the movies of Hamas releasing the hostages. You know all these horrified ceremony. Say, why can't they catch them? Why? Because they are hiding in different places, because they're hiding with the rest of the hostages. It's very complicated. I mean, unfortunately, me also as a citizen, you see, you say, how can, why don't they do X, Y, Z? Because it's very complicated. It takes a lot of time.
We've been in war now in Israel for more than 500 days. This current war is really taking a toll. You have a lot of experience in war. You've learned a lot. If you had a microphone and a podium and were standing in front of new recruits in the IDF, or really had the ability to take your life experience and share it with the fighters right now, what are the top messages you would say?
I think first that we discovered, unfortunately, on October 7th, what great generation we were raising. I mean, I don't think that many people really understand the ability of youngsters who, you know, who grew in a um, well-being country. You know, they didn't came from the Holocaust something, but people on the 7th ran to the fire in the south to save their own brother and sister that they didn't even know their names. So first, we discovered this amazing generation. I think for them, they must understand that the thing that they were learning at school at 48 and 67 and 73, I mean, the Independent War and the Six Day War or Yom Kippur War, unfortunately, it's not finished. I mean, we're still in the struggle for better life, even though our situation is much, much, much better than the our ancestors, okay, or the first years in Israel. I think that still we have a way to go. And I think that everyone should understand here in Israel or out of Israel that the independence war, we didn't finish it. We have different stage, we have more power, and we have more money, and we have planes, and we have submarines, but the main thing of the independent war didn't finish. And we're now in a very sensitive point in the Jewish history. And I think that everyone should do their best to help the Jewish nation in its hard time, whether it's in intelligence fields, if you can be a combat soldier, and if you can be a combat soldier and do good service for your people, because if I'm looking about the Jewish people or the Israeli nation, it's like a fortress that every one of us put some brick. One put a bigger brick, one put small brick, but everyone should put something in this wall that calls Am Israel or the Jewish state. Um, I'm doing my best. I can tell you now, I have Baruch Hashem 5 kids, 4 of them now in the army. I have one. She's an officer in reserve. I have one in intelligence. He learned Arabic, so they they grabbed him, and 2 in very combat units. I mean, it goes from father to son. Unfortunately, we hope all to have peace, but now I think all of us should do our best to help the Jewish nation, the Jewish people.
Amazing. You know, Barak, speaking with you, hearing what you've done for Israel and hearing your Zionism, and it's clear you're a proud Israeli, a proud Jew. And And I imagine you need to be in order to have the resolve to do what you have done. And I'm curious to know the general political climate in Israel, whether in the past or right now, and the extent to which the soldiers on the ground feel that they're pawns of politicians. Does that ever come into play in the battlefield? You're behind enemy lines, you're putting your life at risk, and you're talking politics?
100% no. I can tell you, know what? When I got into Gaza the first time, I was there. I was a commander of a team in my unit. You know what? I'll tell you something, Moshe. It will be maybe it will sound funny, but when we were the first force to get into the Gaza Strip, and you know what? When we start walking, of course, it's very very scary, and you know that you have snipers and you have missiles and you have all the booby traps. I really felt that all the Jewish nation or all the Jewish generation in the history are pushing me towards. I mean, I went. It was we were of course walking with the very heavy equipment, and I felt that someone is pushing me from behind. I mean, my grandmother from Auschwitz, my all the ancestors. I mean, all the Jewish history. I really felt it that people are pushing me. Go. For me, it was amazing, amazing experience. I can tell you that on the battlefield, nobody speaks politics. Don't forget, listen, in my team, we have very left people. I mean, a political point of view, we have right, we have religious, we have. I'm the only one religious in my team, but we have non-religious. We have Masorti guys. We have from kibbutzim, from the kibbutz. We have people from city. We have all. It's a blend. It's really a blend. It's like a big salad of the Jewish and Israeli society. But on the battlefield, you don't speak about it. And many situation, I ran to help a friend of mine that in his opinions and political perception, we are 100% different. But on the battlefield, there is no thing because I think the combat unit, of course, the training course. It helps you to be as one formation. I mean, there's no, of course, there are different perception of life, and you have different opinion. It's okay, but when you fight together, when you go undercover, for example, to mosque or if you go into some, for example, you go into some um, refugee camps with the difference with a friend that thinks different to you. What does it matter? I mean, on the on the bottom line, you're fighting, you're shooting, you're running, you're uh, helping each other without any thinking about this difference in opinions or perception. Of course, you have different, but this is the amazing thing in the Israeli army because people really come from different backgrounds, and I think that this is the amazing thing. I can tell you that my best friends for life, for now, are my friends from my team, not my friends from when I grew up with them. Because you're having, Moshe, you have such amazing um, experience with them, and experience that really you put your life in risk for them, and they will do it for you. So it's more than brothers. I mean, it's a blood connection. I can't explain to somebody who didn't saw it from close. I didn't have this experience, but it's something amazing that you always think about them. You think about helping them. You don't have in the slightest idea about what he thinks about other things. And for me, it was till now. This, for example, when we meet today, so one is keeping kashrut and the other one not. So we have different, different barbecue. If one eat ham and one eat kosher, and it doesn't matter. I mean, we travel a lot abroad. We doing all the adrenaline trips. We can do snorkeling, we can do rafting, we can do jeeping, whatever. I mean, we do a lot of things here and abroad because we are all a little bit adrenaline junkie, in this unit. But in the end, it's more than brotherhood. It's something really amazing.
That's definitely sounds amazing. And you're all elite operators and you've created that special bond. I'm curious, how that bond extends to the broader military. Meaning, what are your views on the effectiveness of the IDF and all the different divisions and units? Do you have a special place in your heart just for the elite operators, or you really see the totality of the military establishment in Israel?
It's a good question. I can tell you, listen, first, when you're a young soldier, you work only in small scale with your company or your unit. And Duvdevan is very small unit, but when you're a little bit getting, into the bigger army, and when you start to be over, you're being commander, you must work in collaboration with armor forces, with Air Force, even with the Navy. I think we have an amazing army, and I think everybody does and work very hard. And we saw it in the last now in the last war, because you see that the IDF understood that you can't work alone. The infantry, the armor, you can't. You must combine. So we have now combined like divisions, that you have in the same division. You have infantry, you have armor, you have air force. I mean, for example, the head of this task force, he has direct line to the helicopters or the F-16, whatever he needs. And when he tells them, listen, I need your help destroying this house because we have snipers there, for example, he in 30 seconds the missiles is in the window of the terrorist, because you have this close connection with the pilots and with the commander of the tanks. The same thing with the tanks. It wasn't in the past, by the way. It wasn't in the past, because I made so many years of reserve. In the past, in my days when I was younger, it wasn't in the beginning. The IDF understood it and started to make this combination in war between. And also, by the way, also in training now, when you do the training, so you have to train, because I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something funny. When we were in Gaza last time, we had some building of about nine floors, and I had the terrorist at floor number 6. So I went on the radio with the a pilot of the helicopter, and I told him, please put the missiles in number 6. He told me, listen, my friend, you're counting from the ground up. I'm counting from the top down, because he can't see the ground, because he's, for example, 2 kilometers from there. So you have to understand that his code, when you speak with him about which floor you have to put the missile in, you're not saying, listen, put it in the 6th floor. You're saying, put it in the 3rd floor, because it's counting from up down. It's a technical thing, but that shows you that if you're making the bond between you and the pilot, and you meet him before, and you have, not specific pilot, but you have some group that works with you, they know they start to understand what you want. You understand their dialect, and then you work as one group. Today, for example, if we call it closed circuit. If for example, I'm closing some building, and I have somebody who runs away, so I can ask the drone of the Air Force to catch this guy specifically. I have to tell, listen, he goes from A to B, and the drone helps him, for example, or the helicopter, or the tanks that is just around my back. I mean, we're all working together. Usually, not in war. Usually, you work alone, and the infantry are alone, and the tanks and the air force. But in war situation, you have the special task force, and it's amazing.
We are unfortunately out of time. There is so much more to share with you about Barak's story, and therefore I invite you to join me for part 2, wherein we talk about life after combat, going from that high pressure, very challenging situation of being behind enemy lines to returning to civilian life, what that means physically, what that means mentally, the challenges of PTSD, what the Israeli military does to address those challenges, and how soldiers are able to reintegrate into civilian life. It's a fascinating conversation with Barak. Don't miss it. Please join me for part 2 of the conversation. In the interim, you can purchase Barak's book online from Amazon, Moment to Kill. He shares some of the stories that we spoke about and others. It is absolutely a good read. Thank you so much for joining and listening to this very important conversation with Barak Chacoty, commander from the Duvdevan unit.